And we're live. I'm here with Mike Manfredi of Clarion, and we're going to talk about Fractal Governance and what's the deal with all that, and take your questions. And so we have some folks on the YouTube channel, so you can just feel free to pop your questions in the channel there if you like.
All right, well, thanks for setting up today, Brandon. Appreciate all your help with that. I should probably start with introing the format here. This is an attempt to communicate better, two ways with the community. So we'll be doing this broadcast twice every week, and we're going to be interleaving me talking about fractal governance or whatever topic gets interesting after that with Brandon Fancher, the head of the development engineering at Clarion, and he'll give roadmap updates and the traction, actuality of the implementation. So every other week you'll get a different kind of topic here. A couple other things I wanted to point out for as people continuously joining the community and joining the conversation. So I'm kind of going to say some of the same stuff each time just to make sure that people know that this stuff is out there. We do have a wiki that represents that is where we're trying to put the information we do have that we want to share with the community. That's at wiki.eoscommunity.org. That includes roadmaps and informational things and resources for when you invite people, Eden-related resources. There's all kinds of stuff on there. If there's anything anyone ever sees that they would like, that's missing, that they'd like to see on the wiki, please do let us know. Drop those in the comments now if you have them. We're looking for that to be a real resource for the community and a source of truth. The forums have been a great place to discuss topics, but for things that have persistence, right? The peace treaty for Eden or the instructions, finding that on the forums is not obvious to a lot of people. So we're trying to make a source of truth resource where we're sharing stuff that's transient, updatable, or on the flip side, permanent. So if you see anything missing there, check it out and let us know. The last thing it's part of the wiki, but it's a really valuable piece of it, is the election details. The book, More Equal Animals, see if I can point up. I pointed the wrong direction. Over here on my shoulder. More Equal Animals describes fractal governance. There are, however, lots and lots of things we've learned as we've gained traction and started writing the software. So the how, the detail, the implementation, as well as what we've learned and like the modifications to the ideas can also be found on the wiki. We'll provide a link to that in the description to this video. Is that something I can promise, Brandon? Yeah, okay, great. And then lastly, I'd like to do this as a Q&A format. There's so much to talk about. I could pick topics and just rattle on about stuff, but I'm not even interested in hearing me talk that much. So I'd rather be answering your questions. I know that there are new people who'd like to hear some of the same answers I've given before or Dan's given before, and I want to serve that new community. But I also know that as we learn generally, a lot of people are seeing things and noticing questions that need to be asked, and I want to make sure we get them. Where I have answers or think I can offer something, I'll give them. Where I don't have answers, I will take your questions and bring them to Dan to provide feedback and to get those answers that you guys want to hear. So let's start taking questions. Do we have anything in the chat, Brandon?
Nothing as of yet, just some comments from some of the usual suspects. I can start you off with some sort of question. Could you just give us an update? I think you may have done a brief update recently, but there's no harm in being a little redundant here. What's the state of development? Where are you guys at with the UI for Eden, and like what's coming down the pipeline? And then I do have a question for you. finally?
Yeah, so I'll leave a lot of those details to Brandon. That's going to be the focus of his update next week. But high level, and again, I'll say this as if someone has no background, just so I don't kind of skip over stuff. The member portal is live. So the Genesis Eden community, the first Eden community, is live. We have the member portal. That is the way to make new invitations, invite new people, work with the invitations that are in progress, and then look at the community, who's in it, and contacting people. That is live. We're all using, the members are using that now. We'll also be adding to that momentarily a treasury balance, right? So the member dues that have gone into that community, and a few people have donated money directly. That will all show up very, very soon in the UI. I just merged that code recently, so we'll be adding that shortly. And then we're going to layer. There's a lot of stuff we want to do, and we're a small team, so we've got layering of distributing budgets, showing the two things that are next up are election related. So one is, as an election's happening, as a member, as a participating member in an election, or even a non-participating member, I want to know what's going on. So we have a dashboard that shows you're in, the round one election is happening right now, and it'll show you, here are the people in your group, here's the meeting link, and it'll sit there until that meeting's over, and then it'll jump to the next round. So we'll do a dashboard for that. And then after that is, once we have the election done and we have what we now call representation, right? The results of the process of election, the representatives now will start distributing that budget to those representatives so that they can spend it according to the consensus that was developed in the election. That's I think plenty high level for now, and Brandon will give answers and have even more detail. There's stuff still being worked out. We largely have the UI worked out for that now, and we've just begun implementation. But there's a lot of details Brandon will be able to provide next week.
Cool. Let's see here. We got some questions so far, some Clarion questions. So I don't know if you want to take those, Michael.
Sure.
You can see it on the screen there. How does Clarion tie to voice, if at all? Could Clarion be considered a competitor to voice?
Let's see. How does Clarion tie to voice? It doesn't currently, given Clarion is essentially non-existent right now. That's an easy answer to give. Clarion is going to be a platform for data transmission. It'll be a platform on which we can build communication, social media. We could build really nearly anything on it. So it's really a matter of what we build on it. Could it be a competitor to voice? I suppose, but given there's so many, on one side of the spectrum, chat apps, peer-to-peer chat apps, or on the other side, a social media app, there's so many of them that which of them really compete with each other? I don't really know. I could say it's going to be a direct competition. It'll be at least a variant. The nature of Clarion kind of makes it a unique platform. One of the key features, there's a lot unique about it, and every time Dan talks to us about it, I kind of get another piece of it. But one of the really unique features is it is peer-to-peer, and because it's peer-to-peer, your connectivity, technically, right, like literally device to device, is very directly tied to your social connectivity. That nature is going to give us the opportunity to do some really interesting things that are different in ways that I would propose are cool and non-obvious. Like non-obvious that they're good, non-obvious that they're kind of hard to wrap your brain around. But if you're going to transmit information through a peer-to-peer network, you're only going to get information that's available from your peers. So your connectivity to your peers and them to their peers is going to be the source of information, right? Imagine information flowing through like your LinkedIn network. Right now, I think it's even I think it's even the second level in LinkedIn. Sometimes I can message them, sometimes I can't, and third level, I can't. I have to know someone, I have to be connected. It'll be something like that. The connectivity will give you what's available. So that's going to be a very different paradigm and offer some really awesome opportunities and some interesting limitations that are going to be unique to the platform.
Cool. Well said. We have some other even more tangential questions here. I don't even know.
See, you asked me for a topic and I gave you a topic, but
I know.
we're already out the window.
I know.
I'll answer whatever I can.
Do you want to dive? Someone asked a question about security. Maybe it's like kind of unrelated to this, and then they're wondering if Clarion can protect against these things. So, what if someone has something like a key locker or key logger, perhaps, or some other program which is recording your screen on their phone? Can Clarion protect against these things?
Clarion, that's not the domain of Clarion. So can it? Sure. My answer with being a software engineer is sure, anything. We can write software that do anything. But no, Clarion won't be that level of security. That's kind of like a protect my computer level of security. Think of Clarion as authenticity, right? How do I know that I'm actually talking to my friends? If you're familiar with something like Signal or anything that uses key pairs for communication, that lets me know the authenticity of with whom I'm communicating. And then end-to-end encryption can give you confidence that your communications themselves are protected. But no, your local terminal, that's not the dominion of Clarion.
All right. Question from Joshua Seymour. What is the best thing that enthusiastic Eden members can do to help move this initiative along, as well as support the development of Eden on EOS community itself?
Well, so we are an open source project. So if there's something you're particularly interested in, our list of issues is open on the GitHub repo. So you can always make contributions if you're a dev. One of the things I'm considering, if you'd like to dive in on a pet project with me and just see where we get, I'd love to meet a project manager who would like to project manage the open source dev. We're a small enough team that we're reticent to really create a community dev team or like manage that actively because that's going to take away from a very small set of resources. But if there's someone out there and you're a project manager and you think, oh, it's too bad I'm not a dev, I can't contribute to Eden, you absolutely can, and you should totally talk to me. On the wiki, there's an opportunities page, and that has a feedback form. So you can send that there, or my email is mike@clarionos.com. Feel free to email me. Now that was a partial, very narrow answer, but could you pull up the question again, and I'll get the other parts of that question? Thank you. So best thing that enthusiastic Eden members can do to help move this initiative along. So I'll give two things I think are really critical. One is read this book. I'm learning. Read this book. The principles in the book are critical, right? We're designing a means of coordinating that is more effective, but also far higher integrity than is currently out there. Now there's opportunity in that, but the integrity part requires something of the members. It requires that we understand why we're doing what we're doing, right? Some of this stuff is going to be way outside the box. We dealt with an issue recently with someone uploading a profile icon that didn't have their face, and that's one of the rules. You have to have your face in your profile picture. He didn't know that. The other people in the group didn't know that, or didn't notice it, or whatever. It was an honest mistake. But to understand, like, why does that matter? Why can't I use an icon? It seems, some of these things will seem like, well, why can't I just use whatever image I want? Or why does it cost 10 EOS? Why not 5 EOS? Why not 20 EOS? Like, how do I donate? There's a lot of like, why not kind of questions that naturally come to mind from the existing paradigms we bring to this new platform, and understanding why this platform works the way it does, and even better, how it should work, right? When we step outside of what the book says we should be doing, you know, the more people who tell us, the better. Well, someone telling us better. So understanding the book and the principles, I think, is absolutely critical, and bringing that to the table as the community grows and acts together. The other thing I'd say is a more mushy answer, but I think it's really valuable. This is a means of coordinating. This is a means of taking a pile of human beings and having them coordinate their efforts and money towards something. What the community, even in its current state, can do, and when I say in its current state, we haven't had an official election yet. All we're doing is growing the community right now. When we have our first election, that'll give us a leader, that'll give us the N-1 level of representatives, that'll give us a structure to work with and make this more official. And we'll have money from the member donations, the joining donation, to spend. So the whole thing will actually be active as soon as we have the first election. But what is that community going to do, right? We could start having those conversations. This is EdenOnEOS, and if we want to attract additional funding, matching funding from BPs or private donations, then we're going to have to benefit EOS, right? And we're on EOS. A lot of us are here because we've been around the EOS community and are devoted to it. Talking about how can we benefit EOS, right? What is this community going to do that will make us stronger, right? That will make the community stronger, that'll make the members stronger, that'll make the ideas in the book be demonstrated powerfully. Anything like that. It's a broad, wide open field. I'm not going to give you a specific. There are a lot of specifics I think could be tackled, but starting to have that conversation and kind of maybe develop a charter, develop a direction. I think there's a lot of discourse to be had there to develop that. So that can begin at any time.
Where do you think the most appropriate place for that conversation to be had right now is?
Oh, you're leading the witness here. Clarion. Yes, a year from now, Clarion. I have no idea. Right
so
now,
you've got a time machine. Okay.
I've watched Tenet like 3 times in the last few weeks, so that's kind of on my mind. I just distracted myself with that whole thing. So Telegram is the place where these conversations happen. So it's the de facto place they kind of need to happen. There's an EdenOnEOS channel. I think that's the most, at least name-wise, that's the most appropriate place. There is an EOS Gov channel, which very much pre-existed Eden, right? This is governance on EOS. That's a different conversation there. These two could very well converge, but probably at the moment, EdenOnEOS, or if you're already a member, there's a members channel, Eden members channel. If you're an Eden member and you're not in that channel, please ask the people who invited you to add you. But I think if you are a member, Eden members is the best place, and if you're not, EdenOnEOS is probably the best. And I feel like there was a part 2 to that question, but I have forgot. Where's best to have the conversation?
I don't know. I think we're going way deep into this. Yeah, I think we covered it. Pretty good. We have more questions.
Cool. Thanks, Josh.
So let's see here. Christopher Barnes, can you expand on why members must show up on video? It has come up that some in the community are very well known, but not willing to go on video. And there's a follow-up. Is there any way this restriction could be loosened up if in the future, maybe increase the number of those that vouch for a faceless member and or have them use biometrics to sign their member EOS transactions?
Okay, let's start with the first piece. Why do we have video? This is as a foundation. A lot of this, by the way, Dan just did a fireside chat yesterday, which is that live yet, Brandon?
It's up, yep.
Okay. So he discusses a lot of this in that fireside chat. So I'll kind of leave the details for that conversation because we did a really solid conversation on that. But the foundation of this entire system we're building here is unique people, real people, right? In blockchain, as many of us already know, but new people may not, a Sybil attack, right? We talk about Sybils. We want to know that a username is a person, right? Otherwise, somebody can just get 18 usernames, a la Facebook or Twitter and Telegram, and act like they're multiple people. Well, when there's money involved and there's votes involved and there's power involved, we can't have people, you know, paying someone to produce 50 accounts for them. That's never going to work. So we need a way to verify them. Now, there's a lot of ways to do that. We could use KYC, right? Know your customer. This is what voice does. This is what banks do. There are services that provide that service. So we could just pay and have everyone go through a KYC process and use government IDs to verify who they are, right? Interestingly enough, that would be a way to deal with an anonymous version. If we did that in the background, and well, if that was being done in the background and you trusted the person doing that, you could know, well, in the background, I know that this person's KYC'd, and the system could verify that's tied, that real world identity is tied to only one account. So there's multiple ways to make this happen. But that's kind of like, and well, now I'll answer the two questions separately with that as background. That's critical to the process. How we're going to do it is by video and social vouching. There are other ways to do that. To get to the anonymous side of things, I don't know that I would say that restriction could be loosened. However, I think the system could be set up to work in a different way for different communities, right? Maybe you want an anonymous community who does this differently. Then you have to solve problems like, well, can the company doing the KYC, can the entity doing the KYC be trusted to be doing that in the background and that process isn't being messed with? In which case, sure, tie a real identity to a username and have the system confirm this username represents a unique person. Or, and this is way beyond my knowledge base, there are entire blockchains based on or focused on privacy. So could they bring ZK proofs and DDIDs and stuff like that to the tables? Sorry, I'm adding S's on things. Bring DIDs to the table and do this in a completely different way. That's absolutely possible. It's pushing more into the bleeding edge. But yeah, there are modifications that could be made along those lines.
Joshua just kind of added on, yeah, perhaps an experiment will happen that's more privacy focused. EOS is a public blockchain. Perhaps a private version will eventually happen to support facelessness. So
yeah, absolutely.
Certainly possible.
Yeah, and you know, the project's open source, and we're going to try to make it as modular as possible too. So not only do we intend on someone being able to pull the code, tweak stuff, and put up your own front end to the same Eden background, but the code could be modified for another community and make all those changes. I find that stuff fascinating. Would love to work on it, but it's also really bleeding edge. Some of it is a pretty big challenge to knit those things together and maintain privacy.
Sure. Nova Crypto just asks, why is video important? I presume he's referring to the videos that we do for the induction process.
Yeah, I'm going to assume the background of that question is why not just social vouching? I think that's so the background is right. How do we protect against Sybils? And as I said, there are numerous ways to do that. Video and a small amount, a small finite, consistent, fixed number of vouchers, is that a word, vouchers? That's what we've chosen. Could you do it without video and have more people vouch, or maybe as the people's reputation and history of activity in the system grows, maybe that becomes a second way to verify that doesn't require a video. But the problem is, in an election, you're going to participate in a conversation. One of the ways that, another way we're Sybil resistant, and I'm not going to say proof, but very Sybil resistant, is we have each round of the election at the same time. Everyone, every member gets on a call at the same time. So if you're in 2 meetings at once, which would be far easier if you didn't have video, this makes it very easy to know, look, everyone was in one video. Can there be deep fakes? Yes. Is the system perfect? No. But if everyone's got their video on, you can see it is their face. They are live. That gives you a very real confirmation of what's going on. I would say the other thing that I feel like, to channel Dan a little bit, I think he'd also say we're building a community. And we in the EOS community, we think of community differently because we've been a digital community. But if you go back to kind of a more traditional meaning of the word, you're going to meet with your neighbors. You're going to go door to door to sign a petition or do a block party. You're not going to, until COVID, you're not going to show up on a Zoom call. You're not going to show up at a block party with your video turned off. Like, that's not a thing. So I think thinking of it from traditional means of interacting is really valuable, especially when you consider that those meetings are discourse. They are exchange of ideas and negotiation. That's hard to do without video. We're getting used to it as a society, and engineers, I would say, are probably more used to it than anyone else. But it's weird to be in this middle ground between phone and video. It's audio only, and we should be used to that because it's phone, but we're on a video-based system without video. I think that's an odd place to be. So it's not like a cut and dry answer. It's largely what we've chosen, and there is a spectrum of options, a slider bar, in fact, even in our current system.
All right. Josh, kind of a follow-up to an earlier question. What can Eden members do beyond participating in elections to help evolve the EOS ecosystem? What seems to be the main priorities that Eden can/should support?
Well, I'll tell you the two that we're focused on internally, and Dan would love to see the community rally around this stuff. Usability, especially considering somebody new to blockchain. Or actually, we'll use a Andreas Antonopoulos idea. He talks about his grandmother, I believe it is, sending an email on an iPad. Sending an email in 1975 was possible on computers, but it would have been at command line. The internet was not the internet back then. So you had to know a lot more, and it was really foreign. It was not something that a non-computer science engineer or, geek of some kind was ever going to want to learn, right? They could, anyone could, but it wasn't user-friendly. And so add decades, and we land at a place where you have this beautiful piece of hardware with a simple UI with big old buttons that say send and things like that instead of whatever it would have said back then. That it's going to take a while to get there, but we're so not there that I think taking the next step is really valuable. So on the EOS blockchain, one of the things you run into frequently, and this has gotten a lot better, right? We have better tools on this, but resources. We've gone through 3 iterations of resources, pre-Rex, Rex, and now the power-up system. So we've been trying to solve this problem, but even in the early days of Eden, when we were running the member portal, we still ran into resource issues. And if it weren't for amazing community members with amazing technology, shout out to Aaron at Greymass for the fuel model and John Boyd for the EOS power-up model. Without these tools, I don't even know how it would work, right? Like, those are critical tools. And even with them, there were limitations in the beginning, and we kind of worked it out with them to make that happen. So usability is a big deal. Anything you contribute to usability, follow either of those guys for examples. What was the other thing? I said there were two things. Let's see if I actually have two. Usability. I suppose, well, it all amounts to usability. I'm sure I have a second thing, but I'm blanking on it right now.
Were you going to say
So,
onboarding? That's part of usability in a sense.
Yeah, I guess the way I created usability, it kind of includes that. But yeah, to onboard freshly, you need an account. Well, how do you get an account? Right now, there's still a lot of things that I go to do and I have to Google, right? And since I'm a software engineer, I'm completely capable of going to Stack Overflow and reading through stuff and figuring out what the answer is. But we need people to come into EOS and just move. Just, okay, what do I do first? Get an account. Click get account, right? We need that hub where stuff is easy. Our intention on Eden is not to be the provider. So this will kind of contradict the question, but I'll come back to it. One of our goals is to use those tools that are out there, but have our app include enough usability patches, fixes, layers, whatever ends up being needed to make interacting with Eden, onboarding and ongoing usability easy. Right? We're going to look to demonstrate how that can be. However, there's a lot of smart people in this community who are really dedicated to this environment. So you want to jump in and solve those problems, a la Gray Mass or John Boyd, please do, right? There's a lot of stuff to be conquered there, and there's a lot of ways it can be done. So I think seeing usability jump would be a huge contribution to the community.
Awesome. Let's check out some more comments here. We've got, okay, so Nova Crypto has been talking a lot about this, and let's talk about it. He says, for me, it is very important testifying part of the intent on how you will be able later to reach consensus on Eden. He has been kind of promoting this idea that people should testify like a video, like attestation of their intent to On EOS, kind of above and beyond the, what we have now where people are agreeing to abide by the Constitution. Do you feel like there's a role for this, or is it, how does that fit into strengthening or like buttressing the Eden community? Is it something we should consider, or is it just something that we should leave to individuals? Or,
well, I love the idea, right? Conceptually, I'd love to say something sacrilegious, hold out the More Equal Animals book, put your hand on it, and promise to support it, right? I would love to see that, because we are doing something that is groundbreaking, something new. And as I said earlier, you've got to understand what that is, especially in these early days, to support that working and support that being a demonstration of what's possible with these ideas. However, we're remote, so at least I can't actually put your hand on a book generally. And especially remote, did you read the book? I read the book. Like, how do you verify that? I think the current script is the minimal version of that. I think it gets the idea across that every member is committing to support these ideas and push this in this direction. I kind of like the idea of that traditional testifying approach. I don't think it adds much. And I think the more we did induction meetings in the beginning, when we created sample induction meetings, we just kept click and stop on the record, click and stop, and be like, this is hard to do, it's complicated. People are just going to be mechanically reading a script, and they're not, you're already, nobody's, it's pretty rare at least that you're comfortable saying something is going to be on the blockchain forever. So there's enough going on already. We wanted to keep that simple and approachable, and I think we met that need. To address the question in a very different way, though, part of what crypto gives us the opportunity for, and what Dan is an expert in, is game theory, right? How do we incentivize the right people to join and stay and contribute? And I think as we're working on implementing this system and getting feedback from people using it, we're starting to see other ways that we can effectively raise the bar. And I don't know if this is how it'll always be, but I'll just give you the Mike says stuff sometimes that probably isn't how it should be said, but I think this is like the very honest answer that you can kind of knit together and figure out where we're going. There are behaviors we want to incentivize and behaviors we want to disincentivize. The more the system just teaches you to do that, it provides you feedback, positive and negative, that has you participate appropriately. That's kind of how a cryptonomic model is supposed to be set up. That's what that's supposed to achieve. And I think we're finding opportunities for that, where there's going to be a little drag. There's going to be one of those like, why are we doing this? This seems like, a big pain in the butt. But the more we incentivize those proper behaviors and disincentivize the wrong behaviors, such as reporting a profile. If something goes wrong on a profile and somebody reports it, well, how do we set up the incentives to have people report profiles that are wrong? Because if they're wrong, we now reduce our integrity of that civil protection. So we want to incentivize the reporters, and then we want to make sure that they have enough sway, and we also don't want them to harass, right? What if reporters are just like, I'm just going to report everything. It only cost me 1 EOS. Well, then you just harass people and you waste time. Now all 4 people from the original meeting have to get involved. If it escalates because of that initial harassment, and we have to escalate it to another jury, if you will, for arbitration, it just starts getting complicated and messy, and no one's being compensated for the time. Well, how do we set all that up in a way that's consistent with the book? It doesn't create moral hazard, doesn't create financial, moral hazards, and maintains that distinction between wealth and power. As we're answering those questions, and that's what I was thinking when I said financial, honors or is structured via the title transfer contract theory, title transfer theory of contract, rather than a promissory setup. As we do that, we're finding there are systems that kind of naturally raise the bar. So it isn't so much, are you going to act this way and be this kind of member? It's really more like, do you have something at stake for yourself that's worth going through a little extra trouble? And I think that's going to naturally work it out of like, this matters to me, therefore, sure, I'll stake some EOS and I'll spend some time and I'll read the book. That's kind of how I see this evolving. That's not at all a final answer. It's actually kind of, part of that is fresh off the presses, but I think that's the direction we'll be going.
Very cool. Here's another one from Nova Crypto for you. Could it be implemented in the EdenOnEOS smart contract that an Eden member has to invite at least X amount of new members?
Yes. Yes. Anything can be written in software, as I love to say as an engineer. It's a lot of this stuff. I could just go ahead, Brandon.
Well, I'm not sure what the consequences would be. Like, it gets into a weird. It's like, well, you can say you have to invite 3 people, or that's where it gets weird. Yep.
Yeah, this is what you get into. I just today, I was formalizing our approach to how do we report and correct or resolve disputes around profiles. And after I wrote up the details, all the answers I had gotten from Dan into a view of how this was going to work, I then did a diagram for the flow of funds. And I took into account, okay, well, who's going to stake what? Who's going to pay what? Who's going to promise what? And I just ran all the scenarios. And there's all of these corner cases that I caught a lot. We had 3 people in that conversation. We caught a lot of the corner cases. But even once it was like, okay, guys, I've written it all up with all of our thoughts in one place. Please review. And Brandon did a lot of the commenting, and he was like, well, look at this. We say randomly select here, but what about? What if? And what do we do if not? So I think when you consider questions like that, to use this one specifically, okay, every Eden member has to invite 3 people. What do you do if they don't? Do you kick them out? Do you financially penalize them? Do you have them stake 30 EOS, 10 EOS per person, and they get that back as they invite people? If you incentivize them through staking or disincentivize them through staking for not inviting, is that going to reduce the integrity of the people they invite just so they get their 3 done? Right? There's a lot of knock-on effects. If you don't do it as staking and you do it as a penalty, then how do you collect the penalty? What if they don't have a balance? Like, there's so many corner cases that make it messy. But I think the most important thing there is what are you actually incentivizing and disincentivizing? And that's usually a more complicated problem than you think. The flow of funds I did today, there's we had 2 separate conversations with different groups. I then spent an hour and a half, 2 hours writing it up and doing this flow diagram. And then once I had the flow diagram, I now can bring that back to Dan and go, I don't think this part makes sense. But it wasn't clear to us first or second pass that part didn't make sense. We really had to lay it all out before we went, I don't know about that. So yes, we can do anything and they'll have consequences.
You heard that. You heard it here. They can do anything, but there are consequences.
And unless you're in tenant, there are time restrictions.
Right. No moving backwards. On the topic of usability, asks Joshua Seymour, in regards to SSO for apps, what will be the relationship between an EOS account and a Clarion account? Should we be pushing for SSO via EOS accounts, or will Clarion do it? I don't know what SSO is, so you're going to have to a
single sign-on. So when you do, when you're at a company and you've got 8 different services you use, and your company just has I'm an employee of this company, sign in. It's called SSO. So
Gotcha.
Let me take this piece by piece because this is actually technical and I do not have all of these answers. So what will be the relationship between an EOS account and a Clarion account? A Clarion account will be a key pair, right? You on the network will be represented by a key pair. An account, I'm gonna give an answer with a massive caveat. I don't clearly remember Dan's answer to this question. I have heard him answer it before, but best of my recollection, Clarion will be an account based on this key pair, and we'll have a social network on Clarion. So you'll have your account that you're developed, even if you're not an Eden member, right? You can have a Clarion account and participate in that network. And then you've got your Eden account, which is a distinct thing, but we'll weave these 2 things together so that, let's say in Clarion, on your profile page, you'll have Eden member, right? Verified Eden member. So Clarion, a Clarion user will basically kind of like Twitter's verified idea. You'll have this person is an Eden member, which implies we know that they're a unique person. I was more thinking about how we sign in with Anchor. Okay. Oh wow, can I say anything about that? I would imagine they'll be related. Let's see if I can connect the dots real time. I could see them being related. Oh, you went back. Okay, I was going to say, Josh is busy at the keyboard.
Just for context, the original question, vis-a-vis now, I was more thinking about how we sign in with Anchor.
Yeah.
On this topic. Yeah.
I'll use the word could. That'll give me an out here. I could see these all being related because you have this verification that went on in the Eden network. So you do have an identity on the Eden network. using that elsewhere, well, yeah, I would almost say absolutely that'll be part of it. That's such a valuable thing that being able to move that cross-platform would be very, very valuable. So I'm going to give you a 90-95% yes on that. Clarion will honor the Eden SSO to capture that last question.
Cool. Well, we're getting down there. I think we're about done with the questions in the chat currently. We've been on for 45 minutes. Do you have any closing thoughts or anything that you want to share with the community?
Yeah, like I said, I'll repeat some of these things each time I'm on, just for new folks and people who, if you're like me, you hear something and it goes one ear out the other. We'll push it in the one ear a few times so it sticks. The wiki has a lot of information on it. It's well worth taking the time. It's pretty well structured, I think. Fingers crossed. If you think I'm crazy and it's not well structured, please do let me know. We will make it as crisp as we can. It's based on something called Notion, which is why it looks funky. It doesn't look like a normal website. It doesn't look like Atlassian Wiki if you're used to looking at that at work. It's its own thing, so that's why it looks the way it does. But it's pretty well structured. There's a lot in it. One of the things in it that I mentioned in answer to one of the questions today was how can we support Eden? There's an opportunities page, and that has little cards that say, there's translation. If you want to help with Spanish translation or Korean translation or Chinese translation, there's a card. You can click a link and let us know, hey, I'm interested in translating. If you're a developer, like I said, I'm going to try to get a project manager first because that'll allow us to expand, in a more controlled and let me say a little more about that. I'll take a moment here. I want to say, turn on the fire hose. All the devs who want to contribute should come contribute. I'd love to be able to say that. However, I don't want that to come with a crappy experience for the devs, right? We love this community. We've built a lot together. I don't want to set something up that's destined to failure and look like we're dishonoring you, even though it's just a matter of time or resources. So I am aiming to have a community dev team who can contribute at will. But I'm going to build that in a way I think is a little more logical. But check out the opportunities page. There's a lot on it. If you want to contribute something, right? If you're a product person, I don't think I have product on there. I have to check that. But if you're a product person, right, and you want to contribute to Eden by doing product development, great. Reach out to us and we'll figure a way to do that. There are some of these that'll be easier to integrate you and some that will be harder. Translation is relatively easy so far. We don't have all the corners ironed out. Do you iron out corners? I don't know. I mix analogies. Welcome to the Mike Show. my analogies just bleed into each other.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, we have a lot on there. And if you have something you want to contribute, and even if you don't know how it'll fit, please do reach out with the links in any of those cards, and we'll find a way to make that happen.
Who's the lucky person that gets to sort through all those emails that you get?
Well, given I gave my email out today, probably me.
Okay.
But those all go to a Google form. So It's just a matter of us checking the Google form every once in a while.
Hashtag project manager.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, cool. Thanks so much for your time today, Mike. And, we'll try to do these at a more predictable time. This is actually just kind of like a pilot.
That's actually an important one. Why don't you talk about, we do have a scheduled time. This is a very impromptu because we literally created this yesterday, but why don't we talk about the regular time?
Yeah, the appointed hour, alternating Tuesdays, it will be 10:15 a.m. Eastern time. I don't have the UTC conversion off the top of my head, but I could look at it real quick. Thank you, World Time Buddy. Love World Time Buddy. That would be a 1400 UTC, 1415 UTC. So yeah, and then so I guess if today is Tuesday, and this is your week, and then next week it'll be Brandon Fancher giving us the roadmap details for development on Eden, and he'll probably have some probably come with a whole slide deck and everything. I gotta be prepared.
And a teaser. I'm not committing him to anything, but I'll give a small teaser. We are actively trying to crunch a roadmap for Clarion. It's just a beast of a thing to iron out and put in any representation that makes any sense. But we are working on that, so fingers crossed. Maybe that'll be part of next week. At the same time, there's probably a bunch of stuff he wants to talk about with Eden. So I don't know. We'll get to that, but soon, if not next week, we should actually have more than just hand wavy ideas about Clarion. So hopefully that'll be cool when we get there.
All right, and with that, I guess we'll see you all next week with the Brandon Fancher show, and then the week after that we'll be back to the Mike Manfredi conversation. So come on with
tuning in, everybody.
Good questions. Yep.
Yeah, thanks for tuning in, and thanks for the questions.
All right, have a good day.